Good evening. This is Henry Dotson, and we're here again for Think About It Thursday. This is a weekly podcast that we do where we talk about and think about the things that we have discussed for the week. So, this week, the Think About It Thursday question is: has your life purpose come into alignment with God's purpose yet? Are you ready to focus on giving to others instead of getting your blessing? Have you settled in in your mind that your blessing is a byproduct and not the end product? Sometimes I think that when we think about being blessed by God, we think that if we get in a line with His purposes, that is what we are going to get as an end result. That we are going to be blessed, and that is the desired end. Well, that's not. I mean, that will happen, but that's not the purpose that God has when He wants you to be aligned with His purposes. His purposes are that you will be a blessing to others. And so, in blessing others by aligning yourself with God's purposes, then you, as a result, will also be blessed. But if you're focusing on getting your blessing as opposed to helping others and blessing others, then you're going to miss the mark. So that's why we have the question for today is: has your life purpose come into alignment with God's purposes? Has that happened yet? Are you ready to focus on giving to others instead of getting your blessing? And have you settled in your mind that your blessing is a byproduct of and not the end product? So we started off this week with with a Mindset Monday, and on Mindset Monday, we said that um, when we align our purpose in God's purposes, we will have a blessed life. But oftentimes, he said at the beginning of the week that often we seek blessings as the end product instead of a byproduct. If our objective is to have a blessed life, we will miss it. We will not get a blessed life. Any life that focuses on one's own significance or fulfillment or happiness is off course. Blessing is a byproduct of giving our lives away for the kingdom. I'm sure some of you have heard it said it is better to give than it is to receive, or I am blessed to be a blessing. Well, that's what God's purposes are talking about. It is better for you to give, which means that you are blessing others, than it is for you to receive. Because if all that you do is receive, then that doesn't necessarily mean that you have blessed anyone. And that's not aligned with God's purpose. So that's why the scripture says it is better, it is more blessed to give than to receive. And it also says that we are blessed to be a blessing. And again, it's the byproduct of what the main product is, which is to bless others. I had a pastor or a person that I knew who was from Arkansas, and he said that they had a saying in Arkansas that said, if you water the grass, then the hose is going to get wet. Now, it sounds kind of funny, but what that really means is, think about it. What's the purpose of watering the grass? Well, watering the purpose of it is so that the grass gets what it needs. so that it can be nourished, so that it can grow, so that it can stay green, so that it won't die. So the main purpose for watering the grass is so that the grass gets what it needs. Now, in the process of watering the grass, of course, the hose has got to get wet. And the, the hose getting wet is an indication that it is a byproduct of doing what the purpose was in the first place. And the only way that you can accomplish the purpose is for the hose itself to also get wet. So what he was saying, and it kind of ties back in again with the scripture, with that mind picture, that if you focus on being a blessing to others, then the byproduct of all of that will be that you too will be blessed. And that's what it's meant, is that when we align our purpose with God's purposes, we will have a blessed life. Because God's purpose is to love on and minister to his people. So if we focus on that, then as a byproduct of that, we are going to have a blessed life. And we will have that all our lives if we stay focused on that, on God's purposes. So what we said then on the Tuesday after that was we usually on Tuesdays we give a tip that we've heard from someone else. And so the tip that we had on Tuesday actually came from a post that I saw online. And what that post said was, when you're in alignment with God, you'll see his blessings in every area of your life. So this is sort of reinforces what the Monday mindset is that we ask you to have, and that getting in alignment with God's purposes, you will receive his blessings, and you'll receive them in every area of your life. So you may be focusing on helping someone in one area, being a blessing to someone in one area. Maybe it's helping them get something done, and it may turn out then that because you've done that, yet you're going to get blessed. But you may not get blessed by having something get done for you. It may be something totally different in a totally different area. You're helping someone by you blessing someone by helping them may turn out that you get blessed because you get that promotion at work. Or you may be blessed because you got favor when you were trying to get tickets to go to some event. Or any number of things that can turn out that you will be blessed. And that blessing will come because you have focused on God's purposes in helping someone else and blessing them in another way. So the tip for Tuesday was for you to keep in mind that when you're in alignment with God's purposes, when you are in alignment with God's purposes, you can expect to see blessings in every area of your life as a byproduct. So that should motivate you to think about focusing on blessing others instead of blessing or looking for the blessing yourself. And that would be in alignment with God's purposes. And then, of course, on Wednesday, we give a scripture that ties into being blessed and being aligned with God's purposes. And it's one of my favorite scriptures that we had on this Wisdom Wednesday. And that is, and we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him, who are called according to his purpose. And that's a scripture that a lot of people fall on or lean on as they go through things. Oftentimes it's because they're going through difficult times, and they may not understand those difficult times that they're going through. So they tend to lean on this scripture that says, even though I don't understand all the things that I'm going through, the scripture says that all things that all things work for good for those who love God and are called according to his purposes. But in this case, we're not talking about a bad thing that you don't understand. We're just talking about things things work for good for those who are called according to God's purposes. So not just the bad things, but also the good things. And so the good things that you do are being aligned with God's purposes. So this scripture also applies for good things. And that's what we wanted you to focus on this week, is not to just think of this scripture as something that you pull out when things are going bad. This is a scripture that is good in all things. So that's why we wanted you to focus on that. And so then again, we get back to what, having done all of that, we wanted to get back to the Think About It Thursday piece that we have. And that is, again, that asking yourself the question, has your life purpose come into alignment with God's purposes yet? I'm saying yet because for those of you who it hasn't, well, there's still time. And we're just kind of encouraging you to think about getting them in alignment with him. And so we're just asking the question and holding you accountable. Have they come into alignment yet? And the second question was, are you ready to focus on giving to others instead of getting your blessing? Giving instead of getting. And lastly, have you settled in your mind that your blessing is a byproduct, not the end product, of aligning yourself with God's purposes? So hopefully these things will be things that you will ponder on between now and the next time that we meet. I think that it's important, if you're really seeking to discover your life purpose, that you have to have that mindset that your life purpose is about serving others and not yourself. And sometimes it's a little difficult for us to do, a little difficult for us to grasp, and sometimes even a little difficult for us to see, because we're thinking about ourselves, and the whole purpose is to not think about ourselves. Life purpose is not about you. And that's something that you need to get straight in your mind, because the way the world describes fulfilling your life purpose, it's all about you. It's all about self-actualization and self-realization and accomplishing what you want to do and all about you. So this is just a reminder that if you really want to accomplish your life's purpose, what God has called you for, what he has created you for, the purpose that you have for your life, that you have to stop thinking about it the way man thinks about it, the way mankind thinks about it, from our perspective, and always looking about what it has to do with ourselves. But we have to start thinking about it from God's perspective and what he has for the purpose for our lives, which is to be a blessing to others. And then the byproduct, again, of that, focusing on his purposes for our life, we will have a blessed life. And we will, in the end, get what the world says we should be seeking in the first place. But it's not the main thing and the first thing that God has in mind. It is the byproduct, and that's what he wants for all of us. And you can think about it also in terms of what Jesus did. Jesus's purpose was to fulfill God's purposes. And even though it was difficult for him to do and he suffered, he did it because that was his purpose. And as a result of that, we are all blessed because of what he did for us, that we now have the opportunity to have a relationship with God that we never would have had he not fulfilled his purpose. So we want you to think about that as you think about fulfilling your purpose in life, and to realize that God is blessing you every day, all days, but he'll give you even more blessings when he sees that you are fulfilling your purpose by aligning yourself with his purposes for your life. So until next Thursday, Think about it. And stay tuned on Monday on social media to see what our mindset will be for next week. Until then, take care and God bless.